Hey friends, and welcome back to the Alex Makes VR podcast. In today's episode, I want to talk about not judging yourself. I'm going to dive into that in a second, but if you have a subject or a question for me to answer in future episodes, you can do so by messaging me on Instagram or Twitter. My handle is AlexMakesVR. If you fancy getting some of the tips and tricks and all of the kind of insider scoop that I share on the podcast delivered straight to your inbox in written form, and usually a few little quirky kind of anecdotes that maybe don't make it into the podcast, you can sign up for the newsletter at alexmakesvr.com. Okay, so not judging yourself. The idea of this came up actually when I was recording Monday's episode. I am really in the thick of it at the moment. I'm directing a very big project at the moment, which has me run ragged a little bit. And this is just always the way it is with especially big client projects. Not even necessarily big client projects, but projects where there is kind of a lot to work out. There's lots of details. There's maybe lots of tech involved, or there's lots of people involved. The week or two running up to the production are usually pretty hectic, because naturally, like, you can plan, but usually there's things that fall through the cracks, and you kind of know that week or two running up to it are going to be the ironing out of the cracks. I've got to stop saying crack. And I've kind of like gotten to a place where now, although it's kind of strange because I'm coming off the back of obviously a much quieter period than it would normally be due to the pandemic, I've never really fully understood that I actually quite enjoy that hectic period. Like this week or two, I know, like this specifically, like when you're listening to this, the production's already finished because we were doing the bulk of it on Monday. So you're listening to a pre-production Alex, and probably the next time you hear my voice, you'll be listening to a post-production Alex. And you'll probably hear the difference in my voice, probably slightly less tired, probably slightly more like riding on a high. I'm not sure when I plan to record Friday's episode yet, but here's the key. I don't judge myself. And this has only really been like a really recent practice that I've started to put into place. I don't judge myself that I go through periods of being super hectic. And that means that I don't see my family or friends as much, and I don't reply to messages, and, I kind of let other things kind of fall back in terms of priority in my life. I don't judge myself that these podcast episodes might not be the absolute best podcast episodes that I've ever put out in the world. I don't judge myself. I don't judge myself that if I decide that after this project, I don't want to do another VR project for 2 months because I'm burned out and I'm just going to step away from it. I'm not going to judge myself for that. And although I am really, really into this idea of action-based goals and consistency and, showing up, and I know that I've really, really enjoyed like showing up and doing the podcast. And there was a part of me though that was thinking, well, maybe I should take a week off for this week because I just know that I'm going to be tired and stressed, and I don't know, my brain's going to be all over the place. Does anyone even want to listen to that? And then, do you know what? I was like, you know what? I'm not going to judge myself. My goal was to show up and do 3 podcast episodes every week. And some of them I'm hoping will be solid gold for you. Some of them will really help you in your business. Some of them will really help you just with your day. Like maybe they'll bring a bit of laughter into your life, or maybe they'll give you that motivational kick that you needed. But sometimes they won't, and that's okay too. But I don't judge myself. And I'm trying not to. And I think you should do that too. You should think about the areas where you're going, I really want to do this, but I just can't at the moment. Like the kids are, gone back to school and it means X, Y, Z or whatever. And, I want to be healthier, but just can't because I can't afford like as much fresh food, or I can't, I don't have the time to like cook a healthy meal for like me and my partner like every single night. Like, don't judge yourself. And I think this is a fine line, right? Because there's a line between not judging yourself and being a total asshole. Like sometimes people use, not judging themselves and being really kind to themselves as an excuse to not do the things that they really want to do. So there is also an element of self-awareness in here of, like for me, if I didn't record this podcast episode, I know that the reason is not because I didn't want to record a podcast episode, not because I didn't have the time to record a podcast episode, because I've always got 5-10 minutes, even if I'm really busy, and I really love it. But the truth is, if I didn't record this episode, it would have been because I was like, I just feel like the quality won't be as good. And, I don't want people to judge me for putting out like a bit more of like a conversational and all over the place episode, because I'm like not in the best frame of mind. Like I want to be on my best. I know that the reason that I wouldn't have shown up to do this if I didn't would have been for those reasons, not because I didn't want to do it and not because I didn't know it was the right thing to do. So sometimes you have to kind of like look at kind of like what you want to achieve and look at what you're aiming towards, whether that be a better work-life balance, or whether that be building a business, or whether that be building a sustainable wage for yourself, like whatever it might be, building towards like your next like art project because you've got something you want to say like to the world, like whatever it might be. If you know that that's the next goal, set yourself some actionable goals, not results-based goals. Don't let quality and people's opinion of you and those subjective things that we all love to get in our own heads about, but actually fundamentally are just the things that will stop us from achieving long term. Don't think about them. Don't let them get to you. Well, think about them, because you can't not think about them, because it's impossible not to think because we're humans. But don't let them stop you. Don't judge yourself. Don't let your hang on, let me reword that sentence. Don't let your inner critic stop you from doing things. But also don't judge yourself. If you can't show up that week for very practical reasons, don't judge yourself. If you were fully on the bandwagon with your I was like emailing 10 people a day, and I was like doing this and that, and I was getting out and taking like photographs like for an hour every day, but then something comes up in life and you're busy, or you land a different project, or your 9 to 5 like starts like creeping in, or like demands more of you, or your kid gets sick and you have to look after them, or even if you just want to take a break because you're not enjoying what you're doing, don't judge yourself. So yeah, that's all I have to say really. I feel like I stunned myself with that passion at the end there. I write myself weekly goals every single week. Every week. I've found that this works for me. It doesn't work for everyone, but I find that if I break my goals down into annual goals and weekly goals, that for me is like the best kind of breakdown. I can if I do them daily, then I feel like I've not accomplished enough if I don't get round to everything, which is, I know for me, I know that that's not true, but I know for me that I prefer to like go after weekly goals. Also, it gives you a bit longer time and allows you that fluctuation of like, some days you'll wake up and not want to record a podcast episode, and other days you will. So yeah, I set myself weekly goals, action-based goals. They're all action-based. None of them are results-based. It's just a show-up action. So whether that be, morning walk every day, that's an action-based goal. Doesn't matter if it's a 5 minutes. Doesn't matter if it's 20 minutes. Doesn't have to be like a really energetic walk. Could be just like a slouchy like walk around the block sometimes. But every day I'm showing up for that morning walk. I'm going out there. I'm getting it done. I have an action-based goal to record these podcasts. Recording these podcasts 3 times a week. I'm not judging myself if they're crap. I'm not judging myself if they're not the best things I've ever put out. So think about that. Think about what goals do you want to set for yourself. With this project that I'm working on, I can get really in my own head, a lot of like imposter syndrome coming in, especially on a project as big as this with, I don't think it would be an exaggeration to say this is going to be a really pioneering project in terms of the tech we're using, in terms of the kind of the reason we're creating it, how we're creating it, everything about it is quite boundary pushing. I'm not going to judge myself for not feeling like I'm good enough to do this project. I'm not going to judge myself for letting that creep in, to overly think the creative. I'm not going to judge myself like for getting on the rehearsal Zooms with the actors and being kind of overwhelmed with how much there is to take in. I'm not going to judge myself. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to show up. I'm not going to let, those kind of thoughts stop me from doing things, but I'm not going to judge myself for it. And so I want that to be the parting message to you. What are you stopping yourself from doing because you're judging yourself? Or are there things that you're doing and actually you don't want to be doing them? And the reason you're not stopping yourself from doing them is because you know that other people will judge you, or you would judge yourself. God, I've said the word judge a lot, haven't I? Judge. Okay, I'm stopping here. But I hope this resonated with some of you. It felt very apt for me to be talking about this right now, because literally one of my weekly goals, so I've got these action-based goals, but the other one is to not judge myself. I've written that in big kind of letters, just like, get through this week. Do not judge yourself. That's what it says. Because I've acknowledged this week is not a crush it in every element of my life week. This week is a grind, tired, stressed, overwhelmed, lots to think about. These are the core things. Morning walk, record the podcast, get through this week and be ready to go into next week and give my absolute best at directing this project, but not to judge myself. So what are your action-based goals for next week? And what are you going to do without judgment? How are you going to show up and not judge yourself? What areas of your life can you apply this to? Have a great day wherever you are in the world. And you know the usual stuff by now. Alex Makes VR on Instagram and Twitter. Sign up to the newsletter, alexmakesvr.com. If you're listening on Apple, please give it a 5-star review. Just a 5-star rating, not a review. They make it very difficult to leave reviews, don't they? I need to go and check if there are any reviews. I'll give them a shout out at some point in next week's episodes, because I really appreciate if you have taken the time to do that. But I appreciate they're very difficult to do. So anyway, have a great day, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.